Welcome back to the Greenville Chamber's Growing a Greater Greenville podcast. We're excited to share with you our Greater Together series on the partnerships that shape Greenville. I'm your host, Carlos Phillips, and today we're sitting down with my good friend, Meghan Barp, President and CEO of United Way of Greenville County. Good morning, Meghan.
Morning, Carlos. Glad to be here with you.
I'm happy that you're here. Before we start, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of today's episode: Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, First National Bank, and Acumen IT. Thank you to our sponsors. All right, Meghan, you ready to jump right in?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, good. Let's start with an overview of United Way of Greenville County and help our audience understand the important role that you and United Way play in our community.
Yeah, Carlos. So United Way of Greenville County, believe it or not, we are entering our 102nd year in our community as a critical partner. And, we have met the critical needs of our community every single year that we've been in existence. And 2023, 2024 is no different. We know that in our county, poverty is a persistent issue. And we focus our energy and our efforts on ensuring that we're doing everything possible so that the nearly 60,000 people who are experiencing poverty right now in Greenville County have the best possible shot at increasing their earnings to be self-sufficient.
Well, the work that you do is invaluable to our community, and thus the partnership that we have with the Chamber. On the very surface, listeners may not draw the parallels between the work that you do at United Way and the work that the Chamber does, but there is significant overlap. Let's take a moment and start the conversation on partnerships with our shared values, and also talk about where we're aligned in our values and our vision for the community.
Yeah, Carlos, listen, when I think about the Greenville Chamber, the first thing that comes to mind is that this chamber has the biggest heart. And of course, you're focused on the business community, but you also understand the dual bottom line of engaging the business sector and ensuring that we're doing everything possible in our community to ensure that Greenville is a great place for everyone to live. And so there's a natural partnership between United Way and the Chamber as a result. Our four key areas are housing, education, transportation, and childcare. And you can't decouple that from the business sector, right? So there's a lot that we do in that space to partner together on issues, and it's a natural fit.
Good. So I know here at the Chamber, our vision is for a globally competitive upstate economy where businesses succeed and people prosper. And I often ask folks, what's the most important word of that vision statement? And for me, the most important word is the and. Because we certainly want to make sure that businesses have every opportunity to succeed, but folks need to prosper as well. And I think that's where our energies kind of unite and our partnership really flourishes.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because our businesses are made up of incredible people, and this is where they work, live, and play. And the work that we do jointly together, that's what makes our community so vibrant. So to me, it's one of the most important partnerships in the community.
Yeah, you said something a moment ago, Meghan, that really got my attention. I think you said United Way of Greenville County has been in existence for 107 years?
102.
102?
Yeah.
102, that's quite a while.
Yeah, and if you think about sort of our roots when we started, it was because business leaders in our community came together and said, we want to make sure that we're doing our part to help those who have less than. And that's really where we started, and we've been responsive and proactive around community need ever since. And so, as we think about the current context in which we're living, and you remind me all the time that we have another 250,000 people moving into our county by 2040. With that comes a lot of great growth. With that also comes some challenges around what I like to call the social infrastructure. So for me, when I think about, our partnership and the work that United Way does, we're uniquely positioned to not only understand where those challenges are going to come from, but to also broker the solutions to ensure that Greenville County remains vibrant for everyone.
I'm often reminded, Meghan, of how United Way of Greenville County, your approach to delivering value and addressing some of our community issues, it seems to have changed a bit since you've been the CEO. Now, how long have you been there? How long have you been with United Way of Greenville County?
6 years, believe it or not, and it's gone by in a heartbeat.
Quite a bit of change has happened over those 6 years. How is your value delivery model changed over the past 6 years?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they think about United Way, they think workplace campaign, right? That's sort of our model that was innovated back in the 1950s of helping employers and employees have a relatively easy way to engage in the community through payroll deductions. And certainly that proved very valuable and important for a very long time. But as our community has shifted, and quite honestly, as our donors and our investors have shifted, we've had to be much more responsive around how we engage with the community and in the community to identify issues and work to solve them. Now, don't get me wrong, the corporate engagement work that we do is really, really important. That has shifted more towards a year-round engagement model so that people know where they can volunteer. They know what the issues are in their community, so they might want to advocate or help with some policy change. So we're offering all these different ways that people can engage in the work, and we're playing a more pronounced role around the issues that we see in our community. We're commissioning research. We're talking to our neighbors in the community to understand what's most important to them. We're, of course, investing in stellar nonprofits in the community who are helping us partner to accomplish our mission as well. So we're really in a different position of having our finger on the pulse of those most pressing needs and driving real solutions to those issues. And the way that I sometimes think about it, Carlos, in the past, we might say, United Way is neutral. I now like to say that United Way is credible and relevant around the community that we serve.
Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina is a longtime partner of the Greenville Chamber and offers a wide range of health plans and options designed just for Chamber members. Companies with 51 or more employees have access to Chamber Blue, Blue Cross's exclusive portfolio of more than 40 unique health plans, with enhanced office visit copays, access to innovative apps, and more. Blue Cross is the only South Carolina health insurance carrier serving its citizens for more than 75 years. For information about our health plans for Chamber members, call the Greenville Chamber at 864-239-3723.
Let's spend a moment on and dive a little deeper into the Chamber and United Way partnership. We are connected in more ways than people might imagine. First of all, we share the pleasure of serving on each other's board of directors. We share a lot of board members as well, but the partnership goes much deeper than that. You want to share just how deep the partnership goes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I think about board service, which is critical, right? It helps understand your strategy and our strategy at United Way and how we might partner and continue to deepen our relationship in meaningful ways. We also have Jason Zacher, who serves on our Policy and Advocacy Committee. That's something that we also introduced in the last few years of a policy and advocacy framework for United Way to really start having a voice in really critical policy issues in our community or in our state, and sometimes at the federal level as well. So Jason has been invaluable on that to make sure that we're partnering and not necessarily duplicating or replicating efforts on that front. Of course, I would say, Carlos, where we spend a lot of our time is around the racial equity and economic mobility work, which is one of my proudest partnerships and accomplishments, quite honestly, that we have and that you and I personally have really championed and moved forward. And that, believe it or not, I was thinking about this the other day, it's 3.5 years old, REEM. Isn't that wild?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and I think folks will gain an even deeper understanding of our partnership if they hear a brief story on how the REEM partnership emerged. Why don't you share that? Story, Meghan?
It started with the phone call. So flashback to 2020, we're in the height of COVID. we were already in close touch on that front because of the response that you all were leading in terms of COVID relief with the corporate sector and the role that we were playing around the community side of efforts. And of course, during 2020, the deep racial inequities in our country played out on the national stage in a pronounced way with the murder of George Floyd. And gosh, we're all at home. We're all on our devices. We're all watching this happen. It's happening in my former hometown of Minneapolis, which I moved to Greenville from. So I'm feeling all of this at multiple levels. And I called you as my friend, not as the leader of Chamber, and not me as the leader of United Way, to see how you were doing, and just to do a check to say, I'm thinking about you, and I'm thinking about your kids, and I'm thinking about your family. And that sparked some conversations between us about how we might play a role in our community. And we also reached out to Pastor Sean Dogan, who was the then interim leader of the Urban League of the Upstate. And Carlos, I laugh about this now, and you and I've joked about this too. We said, let's write an opinion piece and a call to action to our community about Greenville can't become the next fill in the blank town where this is played out in many, many ways. And quite frankly, is played out here in pronounced ways too. So we did this call to action. And then we quickly realized, I think right when it was being published, we realized oh, this is a call to action to us. Like, we don't take this on at the Chamber and at United Way and the Urban League. Like, who's best suited to do this than us? And that's how REEM started, as an idea that then became, a group of us getting together, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that history, Meghan. And it's born from first of all, it's data driven. We had the data that said, hey, we got some work to do in our community. And we also believe that the entire community will do better and prosper if we can eradicate those race-based disparities in education, health, income, and wealth, and justice. And so the hard work continues, and it continues because of the partnership between our organizations and the engagement of some great folks in our community as well.
Carlos, I think you're touching on an important piece of this, right? So I think one is, you're absolutely right, rooted in data. We had commissioned here at United Way a race equity index that we had planned on releasing pre-COVID, and then COVID derailed a little bit, but then it turned out to be very, very useful as a foundation for this work, in part because some of the things that study revealed, one that I know stands out to both of us because we use it often, is that if you are born into Greenville County right now, and you happen to be born into poverty, and you happen to be an African-American male, you have less than a 2% chance of ever climbing out of poverty and in your lifetime. And that has been fact-checked so many times because people don't believe that happens right here in our community. And I know that it gives us, that fire in the belly to do something more about it. So I think that's an important piece. And also, when I think about the 3.5 years, and you're talking about partnership, and partnership is critical to this, we've had some pretty good rumbles, as we like to call them around here, about the work. And that, to me, is a critical piece, actually, of our partnership and our friendship, is that we can tell each other when we think we're wrong, or where there might be a blind spot or a gap. And that to me is real partnership, because when you're doing hard work, it is rarely easy work.
Agreed. So the Chamber is not the only organization for which you partner with. You partner with other organizations, other folks in the community as well. Would you take a moment to just share a little more about some of those partnerships?
Yeah, you got it. So first of all, we don't do anything at United Way. There's not one example that I can give you of something that we do alone. Every single thing that we do is built on partnership. So when you think about this issue of people experiencing poverty in our community, which, by the way, often includes people who are working 1, 2, 3 jobs and still aren't able to make ends meet because of the increase in housing costs, the limitations we have around affordable housing, the increased cost of food, utilities. It's cold out right now. We know that people are struggling to pay some of those bills, and they're working as hard as they can. So when we think about the work that we're embarking upon at United Way, this long haul work, it absolutely takes everybody who's able to roll up their sleeves and partner with us to get this work done. So we call our plan, by the way, Carlos, How We Win. And we talk about it in terms of how we win for our community. So those 4 areas that I mentioned, housing, childcare, education, transportation, we've identified the best of the best partners within each of those spaces. We've aligned around key metrics where we feel like we can have the best possible impact. And we work together to ensure that we're meeting those needs in the most meaningful way possible for our community. And you mentioned this earlier, everything is rooted in research. Everything is rooted in evidence. We also make sure that we're talking to the community members who are experiencing challenges. We invite them to the table. That's a really important aspect of the work that we do. And then we invest dollars and we invest talent and we invest, resources to really tackle those issues. And our plan is taking us through 2030. That's longer than we've ever had a strategy in place at United Way. So it's 2023. We're just wrapping our first year through 2030. And the reason why is because these issues are so persistent and so tough. Doesn't mean we'll be doing the same thing a couple of years from now. We're going to evolve and learn and grow just like any good organization does, just like the Chamber does. But yeah, we have, multiple dozens of partners around the table who help us get our work done.
Good. I'm reminded, Meghan, that things are moving faster than they've ever moved before, and they'll never move this slowly again as well. Kudos on a strategic plan that goes through 2030, but also understanding that things are moving so quickly that you'll probably have to modify that and adjust as you navigate that plan.
Let's turn a trip to the branch into a tap on your phone. Let's hit pause on a lost debit card without hitting pause on life. That's how First National Bank is redefining convenience. With a top-rated mobile app that puts more security and control at your fingertips and friendly people to help you succeed right by your side. Let's get started at fnb-online.com or your local First National Bank branch. FNB, member FDIC.
All right. So we talk about your strategic plan. Specifically, tell us about some priorities that you have for 2024.
Yeah, for 2024, we're really going to dig in on policy, right? When we think about the policy opportunities that we have locally, also at the state level, and then, of course, federally, things like our volunteer income tax assistance program, fondly known as VITA. That's for anyone making under $60,000 per year. We provide tax assistance for free, and that's actually all over the upstate. That's one area where we don't limit ourselves to Greenville County. By the way, Carlos, that returned close to $15 million back into the pockets of hardworking South Carolinians last year, just for the programs that benefit in our footprint here in the upstate. So it's really impactful in terms of what we're able to do there. We also deploy AmeriCorps members, which are basically like the domestic Peace Corps, working within nonprofits there as well. There's a lot of policy plays there. We're continuing to push on things like affordable childcare and access to that affordable childcare. I know that's a huge priority for the Chamber as well. So that's an area where we're really going to get our arms around that and mobilize our many, many thousands of volunteers around that critical issue, because we know that we have to grow our talent here in South Carolina so that we remain the economic force that we are. And that's one of the key ways that we can do that. So policy and advocacy will continue to be a really big effort for us in terms of how we show up in 2024. And then, of course, investing in the community around those issue areas that I mentioned of education, transportation, housing, and then, of course, childcare.
So, Meghan, how are you going to accomplish all that? I mean, that's a lot on your plate. It's not the vegan barbecue that I know you like. Um, how in the heck can you accomplish all of that?
Yeah, I mean, partnerships, of course, right? So one of our superpowers at United Way is our ability to convene. So we bring people together around those issue areas and align our strategies within that to really move in sort of the right direction. So that's been a really big, important piece of what we do is that convening component. We're also going to continue to educate the community on these issues. I think one of the challenges, Carlos, of being in Greenville proper is you look around and it's incredible. Some of the needs that we're faced with are fairly well hidden still, but the cracks are starting to show. So, educating the community and not in a shame and blame kind of way, but educating the community in terms of the role that they can play in ensuring that Greenville County is a great place for everyone to live will be important. So partnerships. And then, of course, I have the most incredible team in all of Greenville County.
Very talented team. And they're out there doing great work, and our community is benefiting from that. So we're going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up our time together today, but we like to end with a question. And that question today is, what advice would you give other organizations who are doing important work, but need to enhance their partnerships to accomplish their goals? We've mentioned partnership every other word on this podcast today because we understand how important they are. But what advice would you give others as it relates to partnerships?
Carlos, it's such a great question, and I've been thinking a lot about this. For me, number one, it's identifying partners that you have shared values with. So if I go back to how we started REEM, even though you and I have, in some cases, different stakeholders and different audiences and obviously different missions for our entities, I know that you and I have shared values around the core things that matter to us in the community. So that to me is number one. Who can you align with that you share values with?
And the partnership, I think, is strengthened because oftentimes we do bring different constituencies to the table, but now the table is bigger. There are more seats and more people trying to move the community in the same direction.
That's exactly right, Carlos. So I think about that shared value piece and then who we bring to the table. And by the way, shared values isn't meant to say that we all think exactly the same way, right? You and I have done a really thoughtful job, I believe, in setting that table with voices that can help make the overall work of REEM stronger and better, even if it's a different point of view than mine or yours, right? So I think that's an important piece of it also.
But bringing our different constituencies to the table, working together to address some of the bigger challenges in our community. I'm often reminded of the old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's really at the core of our partnership. Sometimes the diversity of thought that sits around our table, the solutions don't always come fast or quickly. But the dialogue is robust. The different perspectives are heard. And when we do settle on a direction, everyone's had a chance to weigh in, and there's agreement on there's shared agreement on how we move forward. And I think that's the definition of partnership.
Yeah, ditto. I think well said. And I also think it's a great proverb to reference. And I think the balance that we have, sometimes I want to really hit the gas and you're like, okay, wait a minute, we have to look at this. And sometimes vice versa, you really want to hit the gas and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, let's take a look at this. So I think having that partner who can say, hold up for a minute and let's look at the full piece of this. Or, when I'm having a tough day on something we can't solve, you help balance that out. And when you're having a tough day on something, hopefully I help you balance that out a little bit too. So that trust component of, again, the work is hard enough and takes a lot of time, unfortunately, on some of these big issues. So that balance is super important.
Good deal. So Meghan, any closing thoughts for the audience?
You know, Carlos, you already know this, but I value our partnership so much and what we're able to accomplish. That component about this work being hard, you have to find people that make you laugh and that you can have a good time with also. So thank you for that, because you bring a lot of levity to this work. And also, I think for people who might be listening and might be wondering, gosh, is there anything I can do to make a difference in my community? The answer is yes. You can certainly track what's happening policy-wise at both the Chamber and United Way and help advocate. We, of course, will have a big push, as I think you will also, around voter registration and turnout there, because that's so important. So that'll be something else that we're participating in. There are so many different ways to give back and to get engaged in the community to make sure that it's a great place for everyone. So if you're wondering, gosh, well, what can I do? Because I'm not working at the Chamber, I'm not working at United Way. There's so much to be done. And I know our teams would be delighted to connect with anyone who's interested.
We have promises to keep and many miles before we sleep, Meghan, and I'm glad we're on this path, glad we're on this journey together.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Meghan. Thank you for joining us today. And I also want to thank our generous podcast sponsors today. Again, those are Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, First National Bank, and Acumen IT. And finally, I want to thank you, our audience, for joining us here today and for helping us in our efforts to grow a greater Greenville. Take care.